I've always wanted to say this. Good afternoon, conference. And let's hear it for Reform UK. Come on, is this the Northwest? I said, let's hear it for Reform UK. And let's hear it for Lancashire. My name is Mark Butcher, and I'm a proud member of Reform UK. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and champions of change, get ready for an electrifying moment as we welcome a true trailblazer to the stage. It's my absolute honour to introduce Zia Yousef from Reform UK, an individual whose passion for innovation and for reform is nothing short of inspiring. Zia has been at the forefront of advocating for bold ideas and for challenging the status quo, and to pave the way for a brighter future. His relentless pursuit of justice and progress will resonate with many, making him a vital voice in the conversations about the future of our nation and Reform UK. Today, he brings a vision, energy, and a dynamic approach, ready to ignite your imagination and motivate us to take action. So buckle up and prepare to be inspired, and join me in giving a thunderous welcome to the one and only Zia Yousef.
And write the next chapter in the great British story.
Nigel Farage has asked me to serve as chairman of Reform UK. It is my honour to accept. I will bring all my energy, all my passion to ensure we achieve.
Hello, Reform UK. Welcome all of you to the Reform North West of England conference. What a time it is for us to gather, because we are on a roll, aren't we? What an incredible year it was. You know, a year ago, Nigel was enjoying his blissful retirement. Reform are polling at 8%, rising fast under Richard's brilliant leadership. Rishi Sunak was in Downing Street, helplessly... We haven't got to the pantomime bit yet. That's Richard a bit later. He was still helplessly watching boat after boat cross our borders, illegally. A year on, reform is the talk not just of the United Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen, but of the Western world. We've captured the hearts and the imaginations of millions to whom we offer hope. We've opened over 400 branches across the country, and we've risen to over 24% now on the average of the polls. And here's my favourite bit about where we are now in this country. A real silver lining to this awful cloud of a Starmer government. Ladies and gentlemen, a gentleman named Nigel Farage is now the bookmaker's favourite to be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And despite the best efforts of our enemies, those odds only tighten. Now, wasn't it an unforgettable Christmas period? Almost 50,000 people joined Reform, 46,000 to be precise, in just the last 2 weeks of December alone. Just think about that. That is the equivalent of a third of the entire membership of the Conservative Party, a party which has been around for 191 years, joining Reform in a fortnight. A turquoise tidal wave is sweeping the United Kingdom, and it is giving hope to millions across the country. So much so that the two old parties have already gotten together and launched their emergency countermeasures. What are those? Well, they're going to cancel elections, of course. They're going to deny millions of people across England their democratic right to boot out the awful councillors that have failed them for years. Now, if anyone has any doubt about why they're doing this, the councils that have requested to delay contact with their electorate are Tory-controlled and, of course, where reform support is strongest. Labour wrote to the Tory councils and effectively asked them, would you like to keep your seats a little bit longer? What do you think they said? Now, lo and behold, the turkeys voted with great enthusiasm to delay Christmas. In fact, scandalously, hundreds of Tory councillors who won their seats under the peak of Boris Johnson's popularity will now enjoy 7-year terms. I'm afraid Britain is starting to look like a banana republic. Well, we have a message for these cowards. You may think you can run from your constituents, but you cannot hide. And when those elections are held, you will face a reckoning, and the turquoise wave you fear so much will crash down on you twice as hard. But look, we're gathered here knowing deep in our hearts that the country we love is in trouble. We live in a country in which somehow, despite spending £54 billion a year on defence, the number of military-age males that has entered the United Kingdom illegally via small boats now exceeds the total available soldiers to the British Army. Most are from Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq and Iran, not necessarily the friendliest nations to this country. The Tories and now Labour have voluntarily inflicted a national security emergency in this country. But change is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take a moment, just visualise the day, in just a few short years' time, when Prime Minister Nigel Farage triumphantly arrives at number 10 Downing Street. Having put his briefcase down on the desk and taken a seat, he picks up the phone and calls the First Sea Lord, and he will issue an order. He will order His Majesty's Royal Navy to see to it that not a single unauthorised vessel crossing the English Channel makes it to the shores of the United Kingdom. Now, I'm well aware that the procedure is to go via the Minister of Defence, but I think Nigel should make that call himself, don't you? So look, the Royal Navy will embark on a humanitarian mission to pick up those attempting this incredibly hazardous journey, ensuring no one is harmed and taking them back to France for their own safety. We'll leave the ECHR, we will replace it with a British Bill of Rights. We'll pass legislation making it clear and compulsory that anybody who comes here illegally not only will never be given the right to remain, but they will be deported back to the country from which they came. This is the most tolerant country in the world, but if your first act upon coming to this country is to break British laws, instead of being given free accommodation and phones, you'll be removed promptly and efficiently. And let me tell you, in case anyone from the BBC Verify team is watching, no unaccountable foreign court will stop Prime Minister Farage, because we will finally have a Prime Minister who will ensure that the interests of the British people come first. Now, a reform government will also do something that Labour have refused to do unanimously. The MPs from Labour refused to do it. And the Tories, despite the noise they make now, disingenuously, failed to do in their 14 years in government. We will ensure a full, national independent inquiry into the despicable crimes of the rape gangs that have terrorised young girls in this country for decades. It will leave no stone unturned to ensure justice for the victims and their families. It will ensure that the demonic perpetrators and the officials who enable them by turning a blind eye are brought to justice and are made to pay a heavy price for their crimes. We're going to do the things necessary to heal this country because reform are the only ones who can. And British people should be amongst the most prosperous in the world. Instead, we languish 26th in the world in terms of real GDP per person. And that's despite us having so much going for us. 4 of the top 10 universities in the world are right here on these precious isles. A large number of the world's finest engineers are here. If you're in doubt about that, just go and look at the offices of DeepMind, or go and take a look around the Dyson Institute or the factory making Rolls-Royce aerospace engines and cutting-edge nuclear modular reactors. We have a leading position in the world in financial services, and we have the best possible time zone. And as someone who built a successful business here, I can tell you the British people are full of talent, of energy, and of dynamism. So why is it that the British people actually get poorer every year in real terms? Very simple. It's down to the appallingly incompetent and Britain-hating political leaders this country has endured for decades. There's the religious cult of net zero. An appalling theft of hard-working British people's jobs and money. To do what? To fund the growth of China and India and the egos of champagne socialists. Speaking of champagne socialists, I have a quick question for Boris Johnson and Mad Ed Miliband. If renewables are so cheap, like they kept telling us, then why have British people been forced to subsidise renewables to the tune of over £90 billion over the last decade? And this is just the subsidies that British consumers have had to pay. That's £300 per household per year extra that they've had to pay in their energy bills, out of their post-tax pay, while they struggle to make ends meet, all to enrich corporate renewable shareholders. And given all they did was offshore those emissions to China and India, they've done nothing to make the world any cleaner. Make no mistake, this is one of the greatest heists on the British people of all time, and reform will bring it to an end. And, Rachel Reeves is currently in China, you may have seen. That's no way to talk about an economist. Well, she actually worked in the complaints department at Halifax, which will probably come as good training for where she is now. Look, it's the cost of borrowing for this country, and soon people's mortgage rates skyrocket. After that horrific budget, it's actually not a surprise that she's fled to the warm embrace of the Chinese Communist Party. Apparently she's keen for ideas to grow. Well, Ms. Reeves, let me tell you, while the Tories and Labour obsess about net zero, do you know what the Chinese are doing? They announced just this week they will produce 4.8 billion tonnes of coal this year. I don't think they're going to tell you this, Ms. Reeves, but they can barely produce enough coal to power the plants that manufacture all the wind turbines and solar panels that your Mad Ed Miliband is buying from them. They must laugh so hard. Now then there's the bureaucratic state, which has ballooned to an insane size. 500,000 people are now employed in the civil service, many of whom get to work from home, all being paid on your dime. In fact, Britain now employs a larger percentage of its population in the civil service than communist China. And perhaps that's why Rachel Reeves has gone out there to ask them how to reduce the size of our state. In the last 7 years, the burden of the civil service on the taxpayers rocketed by 50% to £15 billion. And now in the age of AI, with competent leadership, there's no reason that couldn't be cut in half and still deliver a vastly superior service to the British people. But the problem with the bureaucratic state is much more pernicious than that. They act as a suffocating parasite, feasting on the dynamism and hard work of the British people. We have far too many regulations, far too many regulators, and nowhere near enough builders. That's why we will demolish the unelected, unaccountable quangos and unleash the tidal wave of potential in the British people. And the reality is the two old parties have spent decades creating these problems. Labour, Conservative, it's made no difference. And that's why reform is necessary. This is why reform has broken through with such a breathless pace, because in reform, British people see a real alternative. They see history being made in real time, ladies and gentlemen. The stranglehold that the two old parties have had on the politics of this country for a century is finally being broken. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are responsible for that. And generations to come will owe you a debt of gratitude. Nigel gave his New Year's message from Blenheim Palace, famous for being the birthplace of Sir Winston Churchill. Now, this is a man whose legacy has come under all-out assault in recent years. People calling themselves teachers have sought to rewrite history and disparage the legacy of one of the greatest Britons ever to have lived. But their efforts are in vain, because his spirit lives on. It lives on in the people in this room, those watching at home, the millions of reform supporters across the country who know in their hearts that the time has come for them to stand up and be counted in their country's hour of need. We see a future in which the United Kingdom, instead of being ritually humiliated, celebrates triumph after triumph, one in which national pride radiates through the kingdom, because our people achieve astonishing feats in architecture, in engineering, in sport, in literature, in medicine, in all aspects of human achievement, one in which families are bonded together and communities thrive, one of which young people are fortunate to be a part. That is what reform will deliver. This is why people are joining us in such droves. Now, we're almost at the 6-month anniversary of when Nigel asked me to become chairman of the party. And I'm proud of what we've achieved together. Our membership has grown by 160%, from 68,000 to 179,000, I think. I haven't looked at the ticker at the latest count. 180, there you go. Well, there we go. We should get a round of applause for that. I can barely keep up. We've gone from no branches to over 400 branches across the country. We've gone from 14% of the vote share in the election, an incredible achievement for a start-up insurgent party, to 7 months ago, to 24% in the average of the polls. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, the latest poll on Friday this week has Reform UK leading a national opinion poll for the first time. But make no mistake, we still have enormous work to do. And that's why we need your help. We need people like you to step up. We need your courage. We need your imagination. We need your energy. We need you to stand for us as candidates. In fact, you'll have seen in the lobby there are members of our team and reform councillors with whom you can discuss becoming a candidate and what it's like. But we'll also need you to volunteer, to knock on doors, and to campaign for reform. Will you do that for us? Ladies and gentlemen, if we work hard, the sky's the limit as to what we will achieve together. We will elect Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister. We'll turn this country around and restore the United Kingdom to its rightful position as one of the greatest countries in the world. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's all very exciting, isn't it? All very exciting. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it's with great joy and pride that I introduce to you a truly great person and a dear friend of mine. Councillor Jim O'Neill, the first councillor elected in the North West for Reform UK, representing Blackpool and Fleetwood branch for the Marton ward. Councillor Jim O'Neill is a dedicated public servant whose passion for his community is evident in everything he does. His groundbreaking achievement was the first elected Reform UK councillor in the region is a testament to his commitment and to bringing a positive change to the representatives of the good people of Blackpool, to represent the good people of Blackpool. With a strong focus on local issues and a genuine desire to listen to the concerns of his constituent, Jim has quickly become a trusted voice in local politics. His approachable nature and determination makes for a deeply resonative power. Jim speaks from the heart, and today he joins us to share his journey and his vision for a brighter future for our community. So please, join me in giving a warm and heartfelt welcome to the incredible Councillor Jim O'Neill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chester. Thank you very much, Mark, for your kind words. About 30 years ago, I spent a year working in Chester at the headquarters of the 22nd Regiment of Foot. During that time, I lived in Frodsham. Frodsham was a much safer place back in those days. I don't remember being allegedly assaulted by any, let's say, raging MPs. So, my name, as you said, is Jim O'Neill. That name might sound familiar to some because I share it with a gentleman called Baron Jim O'Neill of Gatley. He is a famous economist. Now imagine the confusion if I'd have spent a couple of years working in the Halifax Customer Complaints Call Centre and I'd have joined the Labour Party. Maybe there'd be two famous economists called Jim O'Neill. But no, I'm Councillor Jim O'Neill of the once very proud town of Blackpool. And we're going to take that back too. In October last year, I became the first Reform candidate to take a Labour seat. And you know what? We're going to take many, many more. After a full career, I left the army in 2014 and had absolutely no interest in politics until Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party. As a serviceman or woman, you not only take pride in what those who went before you achieved, the history they made, the way they stood up for this country in its time of need, their sacrifice, you're also duty-bound to protect that legacy. I was terrified that Corbyn would deliver some form of twisted dystopia where we became the bad guys. Then came the Brexit referendum. 2/3 of the people in Blackpool voted leave. Our elected representatives did nothing but obfuscate and try to frustrate that process. If democracy is not about enacting the will of the people, what is democracy supposed to be? I spent allegedly 20 years protecting democracy, only to find out it's a word that most people don't understand. I may still even get a little bit confused about the meaning of the words. You know, we have one of Corbyn's most favoured front-bench supporters, one of his greatest cheerleaders, who now purports to run this country. Fresh from robbing pensioners of the winter fuel allowance, their attempts to destabilise our farming communities. And now we're seeing, or also denying us, what would be an inquiry into one of probably this country's worst scandal ever. They're denying us the right for an inquiry into that. They're now attempting, or he's now attempting, to hold democracy in this country hostage. He's trying to hold this country hostage for millions of people with the support of the right wing of the Uni Party. This tells us one thing: they're terrified. They are absolutely terrified. The days of voting for the least worst of the two wings of that Uni Party are over. No longer can the Labour Party absolve themselves of any responsibility by saying, well, the Tories are worse. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. It's only the legacy media which continue to drive this narrative. As they continue to talk down the success of this party, they question the membership numbers of the party, deride the likelihood of Nigel being in number 10 in a few years' time, create false division with our supporters, and tell outright lies about this party. The road to number 10 doesn't start when the general election is called. The road to number 10 starts here, and it starts now. And it starts with everyone in this audience. People must see that Reform UK can win, because success breeds success. And this responsibility is on us all if we want to take our country back. We can keep telling the people of this country that Britain needs reform until we're turquoise in the face. But you've got to show them we can do it. And that means fighting every by-election which comes up. Within our Blackpool and Fleetwood branch, we've had great success. We've fought 3 by-elections, and we've won 2. We came second in the other one, but you know what? I'll still read that as a success. We lost by 12 votes. 12 votes. Now, this is where we have to support everybody. You need to be organised to get ready to go and fight every election. And the thing is, don't just look into your own area. Look left and look right of you. You need to look at your neighbouring branches and get out there and support it. Even if you can only give an hour, you could probably knock half a dozen doors in an hour. That could make all the difference. I said we lost by 12 votes. If one other person had come along, spent an hour with us, that could have been the difference. So we need to get out there and support each other. We are a family at Reform, and we all need to bond together, and we will take this country back. I want to give a little example of what really broke me during my election campaign. Now, there are better stories, but I want to tell about this story. Late September, it was getting dark, about 8 o'clock at night. I approached an average-looking house with a glass door and a net curtain. I knocked on that door, and I watched as a light came on. I saw a figure moving toward the door. I felt a twang of guilt. It's a figure of an elderly person walked toward the door. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's getting dark. It's cold. I feel guilty about knocking on the door. Anyway, this lady answers the door. She's about 80 years of age. She's dressed in a body warmer, and she's got a shawl over her shoulders. And I said, hi, my name's Jim O'Neill. I'm your Reform candidate for the upcoming local election. And she says to me, "I'm sorry, son, I can't vote for you. I'm not voting for anybody anymore. I voted Labour all my life, and they've cut the winter fuel allowance." There was no anger in her voice, no frustration. It was just sheer defeat, absolute defeat in her voice. And I was kind of transfixed as a tear began to well up in her eye. And I'm thinking, why am I doing this? And it's all right to afterwards to think back on it. This is why I'm doing it. But at that time, I was kind of lost in that moment. And she said to me, "Whatever you do in life, son, if you make a promise, keep that promise." She then quietly shut the door, and I watched the figure disappear down the corridor until the light went off. And I still stood there. So many different emotions running through. But you know what? It gave me that resolve to carry on. Because that lady felt disenfranchised. That lady felt her vote no longer mattered. And if I've been protecting democracy for 20 years, and I see a lady like that who feels it doesn't matter, something is wrong. This country is broken. Right, I want to wrap up with the final words from another veteran. He was of the 4th Queen's Own Hussars, Clive Dunn. If they don't like it, up 'em. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Jim O'Neill. Thank you, Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, he stood in Makersfield in the general election and got Reform's 6th largest vote share, with 12,803 votes. A Lance Corporal in the Royal Engineer Reserves and a massive Wigan Warriors fan. Hey, Liverpool are playing today, aren't they? Anyone know the score? Give him a wonderful welcome, please. Robert Kenyan, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon, conference. Hey, it's been cold this week, hasn't it? So cold that even Rachel Reeves was spotted with her hands in her own pockets. On Sunday, my wife stood looking out the front window, and I said, "What are you looking at, love?" She said, "I'm just looking at all the snowflakes." Well, I thought Labour were out canvassing. Keir Starmer's Labour, when they're not freezing pensioners, or grabbing freebies, or releasing sausages, they're attacking farmers. But I think they're really missing a trick with the farmers. I think they could really help them out if they wanted to. All they need to do is drape a load of plastic bags across that front bench. Every time one of them spoke, it'd keep Britain's farmers in horse manure for years. There's a rumour going round that Keir Starmer will visit the UK next week. But in a break from tradition, it'll be the only country on his list that he won't be handing out millions of pounds to. Sorry if I keep doing this. I think I'm releasing me in a Liam Gallagher. I think I'm going to get that microphone a little bit further up. But all jokes aside, hello, I'm Robert Kenyan. I stood in Makerfield, which is half of Wigan if anyone doesn't know. And me and my team came second, and we got almost 32% of the vote share. Makerfield is a seat that's been heavily tipped to go to Reform if there was an election tomorrow. Electoral calculus has us winning by a slim majority. That's why the Labour candidate, who's never stepped foot in the town until he was selected, went to Cambridge and Harvard, has recently received donations of nearly £60,000 from millionaire hedge fund managers. You know, that good old-fashioned working class socialist Labour Party, where Cambridge graduates are plonked in areas like Wigan, with billionaire hedge fund managers backing them. I don't have a bloke who manages hedge funds to back me. The closest I've got to a hedge fund manager giving me money is when I got a £5 donation from a landscape gardener. But this goes to show we've got Labour petrified. That a plumber from Wigan, supported by Salt of the Earth volunteers, all doing it in the spare time and at their own expense, all paid for by small donations, can put the frighteners up a party for champagne socialists funded by millionaires who care not a jot about the working class people in this country. I'll just climb down off my soapbox for a minute while I tell you a little bit about me. I'm a gas engineer, a husband and father. I've been an army reservist for the past 5 years, and I'm a patriot. I worked for the NHS for 6 years, including throughout the pandemic. I'm a rugby league fan, and if truth be told, I always had an eye on politics, but I never thought I'd get involved. If this is my comfort zone, and I had to tell you how far outside my comfort zone I am, I'm probably in Ellesmere Port. But what made me stand for election was probably two things. One of them was coming back after working in a hospital for 6 years and being a gas engineer, driving around the town every day. You get to see your town in a lot more detail. And I saw people openly taking drugs, boarded up shops, the downward spiral of the northwest as a whole, and a huge demographic change that went with it. Having hundreds of undocumented fighting-age males dumped in our towns and villages, and then being allowed to walk around our towns and villages freely, despite being illegal immigrants. In my opinion, they should be detained until deportation. All those hotels, electric bikes, mobile phones and pocket money they get are all paid for by us, the taxpayer. That tax we pay should be spent on us instead. Secondly, I did some research into my family tree, and I found out my great-granddad, who fought in the First World War, fought at the Somme and at Passchendaele, and was awarded the Military Medal, which is awarded for acts of gallantry or devotion to duty whilst under fire. If he can do that for his country, then I can surely put my face on a few leaflets, stick my head above the parapet, and do my bit. I also got involved in politics because I'm sick of their sheer incompetence and, in my opinion, malevolent leadership under the Uni-Party that have run this country into the ground since 1997 and turbocharged even worse this last few years. They've created this movement with their inactivity. Like Isaac Newton said, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and we are the reaction to the left-wing, woke, lack of common sense, omnishambles that they call government. I'll tell you a bit about why we're here. Family, community and country, the lifeblood of our nation. These aren't just slogans, they are the principles that guide us at Reform UK and the values that define us as people. Family is where everything begins. It's where we learn love, responsibility and sacrifice. Families are the backbone of this nation, when families thrive, Britain thrives. But today, families are under constant pressure. They face rising costs, crumbling public services, and a system that seems designed to work against them. The establishment parties talk endlessly about progress, but the policies make it harder for families to own homes, raise children, and build a secure future. At Reform, we say families matter. communities where family values come to life. It's about working together, helping our neighbours and building places we're proud to call home. But let's be honest, our communities are struggling. I've seen it firsthand. Pubs have closed and turned into HMOs for you-know-who. The roads look like the surface of the moon, and communities have lost the spirit, probably due to the forced isolation when they took away our freedom during COVID. At Reform UK, we're committed to rebuilding our communities, not with empty promises, but with real action. And let me be clear, a strong community means safe streets. At Reform UK, we will ensure our police are properly funded and empowered to crack down on crime. Scrap all DEI roles and sack police chiefs that allow two-tier policing. And then there's our country, our shared home. Britain isn't just a line on a map. It's the land our ancestors fought and died for. It's a land of opportunity, ingenuity and resilience. And the uni parties have done the best to flood the country with a failed multiculturalism experiment. But if any of those temporary visitors gets fed up of living in the UK, they can go home to the country and back to the culture. But if things get worse here, where will we go? The answer is no, well, we've got nowhere else to go. And this is why it's vitally important to fight to save our culture, identity and country. A strong country starts with strong leadership. Reform UK will restore sovereignty to Britain, protect our borders and put the interests of British citizens first. Reform UK will leave the ECHR, reject the World Economic Forum and the WHO. We will replace the Equalities Act and scrap DEI rules and promote British culture, identity and values. This is our generation's fight. It won't be fought with rifles and bayonets, but with determination, courage and unity. It's about standing up for what's right and refusing to let our nation's legacy be squandered by weak leadership and bad decisions. You've taken the step to come here today. Now we ask you to take the next step. Stand with us. Fight to save your community and your country. Together we can create a safe, prosperous Britain, a country we're proud to pass on to the next generation. Hope is not a course of action. All of us here must get involved to make that change and save this country. So rise up, stand tall and take your place in this fight, because Britain's future won't be written from the sidelines. It will be forged by patriots like you, who dare to act, who dare to lead and who dare to believe in the greatness of our nation. Thank you.
Robert Kenyan from Makerfield. Great lad. Thank you, Robert. Okay. How are we doing so far, folks? All right, so please join me in welcoming a truly exceptional leader, the chairman of the Penrith and Solway branch, and the Cumbrian regional manager, Matthew James Moody, with an impressive 30-year career spanning international corporations and entrepreneurial successes, and a community leader. Matthew's journey exemplifies dedication, innovation and impact. He took the decision in 2021 to uproot and move to Cumbria and lead the charge in Penrith and Solway, and spearheaded their election campaign and reshaped the political landscape in Cumbria. He delivered a 16% of the vote and knocked out the sitting Tory MP. He has also mentored and empowered countless individuals through his enterprise in real estate and business. He's a beacon of inspiration and determination for many. Ladies and gentlemen, give us a warm and enthusiastic round of applause for Matthew James Moody.
Good afternoon, conference. How are we doing? Excellent. It's an absolute privilege to stand before you today as a representative of Cumbria. Now, we all know Cumbria for breathtaking landscapes, for amazing hard-working communities, and a rich heritage. Yet behind that is a growing crisis that I wish to talk to you about today, and that is the housing crisis that faces our country. I want to address this head-on. I want to shine a light on it because, let's face it, successive Labour and Tory governments have led us down. I want to explain why a Reform UK government has the solutions to solve these issues. The housing crisis that we have today did not appear overnight. Successive governments have failed us again and again and again. These parties have promised to tackle the housing crisis, yet house prices are soaring. First-time buyers are priced out of the market and families are trapped in substandard accommodation. It is a question of supply and demand. Over the last 2 years, we've had 1.3 million additional people come into the country. Yet how many homes have we built? 425,000. The Office of National Statistics are forecasting that our population will grow by 7 million between now and 2036, placing huge unbearable pressures on our housing market. And why do these pressures exist? Mass immigration and quick fixes that Labour and Tory governments have created over time. We have planning regulations that are overly complicated. We have driving costs slowing down development instead of addressing these issues. They throw in taxpayer money at things such as Help to Buy, which, well-intentioned, are not solving the issues and are further inflating house prices. Let's talk about the UK taxpayer. Everyone here, me, you, we're all subsidising the big house building companies who are making billions in profit whilst delivering, frankly, overpriced, poor-quality homes. These developers are making insane profits, gaming the land, hoarding thousands of acres, and building at a pace that maximises their profit and not delivering urgent demand for affordable accommodation throughout our great nation. Now, when Help to Buy was introduced, a well-meaning scheme, new build house prices went up by 51%. While house builder profits soared to over £1 billion annually, often contributing more than 50% of their total profits. A House of Lords report stated we were going to spend £29 billion of taxpayers' money to allow 350,000 people to essentially buy overpriced, inflated properties. Good value for money? Don't think so. And what do we get for our money? We get new builds, and they're often riddled with lots of issues. Poor insulation, flimsy walls, designs that lack any character, and don't even get me started about the complete lack of energy-saving measures in most of these properties. Both Labour and Tories have failed to address these issues, and they've let this deterioration in quality come again and again and again, failing to hold developers accountable. Meanwhile, young families and first-time buyers are priced out of the market, left with substandard accommodation and crushing mortgages. And in the case of Help to Buy equity loans, many people may end up owing the government substantially more than they first borrowed, so effectively playing with people's finances. Now, until we faced the Until we faced the crisis from uncontrolled mass immigration, the solution to the crisis was quite simple, and it could have been solved in less than one parliamentary term. And it's going to take a little bit longer now, but we can still do it. The two Trojan horses that many people never talk about are empty houses and public sector land. Now, the latest council tax database that came out at the end of 24 indicates there's 265,000 homes that have been empty for at least 12 months. We know there are at least 1 million homes that are not being used. Some of these are being renovated, about a third of them are holiday lets or second homes. The vast majority are just sitting empty. And shame on the councils who own 300,000 of these who are not fixing them because they lack the funds to fix them, but they can build brand new multi-million pound council offices. Now, by law, every council must have an empty homes office and a clear strategy for bringing them back into use. But the fact is, there is no accountability, there's no accessibility, and there is no clear national strategy. So you'd be forgiven for thinking it's not working. But let's also look at public sector land. Public sector land is a huge issue. About 7 years ago, I gave a talk at a global sustainable conference and revealed at that stage, and the figure has only gone up, that the public sector owned 8.5% of the UK, which is 4.7 million acres of land. Now, what do they do with this land? Well, 30% of it is brownfield and could be immediately used for development. TfL in London own, at this moment, 300 acres in which they could build 10,000 new homes for Londoners. And the NHS has over 3,000 acres of land. Now, has anyone seen any new doctor surgeries, any new hospitals, or any new doctors recently? I haven't. So the solutions are staring us in the face. The issue we have is politicians and the public sector are not doing anything about it. Now, here in Cumbria, the housing crisis does take on certain unique challenges. Obviously, we live in a beautiful place, and it's a magnet for second home buyers and also holiday lets. Now, this does boost tourism, but at the same time, it puts first-time buyers and our local population, some of those housing out of reach. Young people are being forced to leave the area or travel on a bus for 20 or 30 miles, and the bus service in Cumbria is not the best, I can tell you that, in search of affordable housing so they can keep on working. It's eroding the very fabric of all of our communities. Now, like a lot of rural communities, most of our housing stock is over 100 years old. Many properties operate off-grid with oil and LPG. In older properties, heat pumps are frankly a complete waste of time and money and will cost consumers thousands of pounds in additional electric every year. But let me ask you this. Has the government come up with an alternative, cost-effective solution for when oil boilers are banned in 2035? I'll tell the answer, no, none at all. So social housing is scarce in Cumbria, and the private rental sector is out of reach for many, as I'm sure it is in many of your local areas. And this situation is unsustainable. It's a tragedy for all hard-working people who deserve better. And the legacy parties have failed us. They've failed to protect the communities. They've failed to ignore the specific needs of rural areas like ours and continue to do so. And I believe it's time for Westminster to take our rural communities seriously and not as an afterthought. Reform UK is different. We believe in action and not empty promises. And in our contract with the people, we said how we would tackle that housing crisis and ensure everyone from first-time buyers to renters have access to quality homes. The first thing we would do is make sure that local needs are prioritised. So if you have a local strong connection to the area, you will get access to social housing first. The second thing we do is cut residential stamp duty, making it easier for people to move and also first-time buyers to get onto the housing ladder, reducing those financial barriers that many people face when they're buying a home. The third thing we would do is introduce targeted housing support for veterans, recognising their service and ensuring that they have priority to social housing and assistance in entering the housing market, not being left homeless on our streets. We would also scrap the 2019 tax changes for landlords. This has effectively discouraged landlords from renting properties. It's decreased the availability in the rental market, which is why rents have gone back up. We'll also abolish the Renters Reform Bill because there's already, frankly, too much legislation that does not work. But we will focus on fair policies that protect both tenants and landlords without driving up the rental costs. We would also ensure that brownfield developments are fast-tracked. There's so much brownfield out there. I've already mentioned the 30% in public sector, but we can effectively not build on our green spaces, which is what the current Labour government wishes to do, but instead use unused or derelict land to build. Ladies and gentlemen, the housing crisis is not an unsolvable problem. What it requires is leadership, it requires vision and the political will to make bold decisions. Countless governments, Labour, Tories, even the Lib Dems when they were in power, have shown time and time again that they're not up to the task. They have failed Cumbria, they have failed your local area, and they have failed the UK. Reform UK is ready to step up where others have faltered. We've put the needs of people first, not the profits of huge developers. We'll prioritise our communities and ensure everyone has the opportunity to own or rent a home at an affordable price. Together we can rebuild trust, we can restore fairness, and we can give our communities the future they deserve. Let's make Cumbria and the UK a place where housing is no longer a crisis, but a cornerstone of thriving communities. Thank you.
Matthew James Moody, Penrith and Solway. That was fantastic, Matthew. Thank you very much. Okay, Nick Golding. He served for 30 years in the army, both in the regular army and the TAs. He retired as a lieutenant colonel following his final tour in Baghdad as head of media operations. In civilian life, he pursued a career lobbying on behalf of small businesses, and he worked the corridors of Westminster, Whitehall and Brussels, seeking influence to affect regulations for small businesses. He's moved to Cheshire and he's been here for 30 years. He's got family roots across the county, including a great uncle who was killed in the Somme as a brigadier, leading his troops to the front. Nick has owned and ran a taxi firm in Northwich for the last 15 years, and he's been a Conservative councillor, don't be too hard on him, a branch chairman and constituency policy chairman as well. He stood for the Brexit Party in 2019, and then as a Reform candidate for Police and Crime Commissioner in Cheshire in 2020. He's been very busy. And currently he stands as the chairman for Crewe and Nantwich branch. Please, friends, give him a wonderful, rapturous applause. Please, Nick Golding.
Thank you, friends. Can I just check this mic is working? Well, I think it's time to get serious. I'm going to take my jacket off, and I'm going to pass it to the man here, because one of the things that I love about Reform UK is that you're always amongst friends. The people here are the bedrock of our society. They come from all parts of society, from rich to poor, from old to young, but the thing that unites them is they want the best for our country. I could speak about policy stuff. I've got boring policy stuff up to my ears, but actually I'm going to concentrate on England, because England is the greatest force for good this world has ever seen. The Industrial Revolution drove prosperity across the world. If it wasn't for the men and women, and if I say men, I mean women too, men in the collective sense, the men of England provided the foundations which delivered prosperity. But they also delivered justice and fair play across the world. The reason that slavery isn't such a thing now is precisely because the British decided to stamp it out and spent, through the 19th century, large amounts of taxpayers' money and no small number of lives to stop the iniquitous slave trade. And in the rest of the world, where we were expanding our trade empires, we brought goodness to people. We stopped the Hindus from burning their wives, their widows alive. In Benin, where we've just returned the bronzes, we stopped a kingdom that was notorious for its slave trading across West Africa. England also stood against dictatorship. England fought against Napoleon and defeated him. It fought against the Kaiser and it defeated him. And then it fought against Hitler and we defeated him as well. But although England, and I have to include our near neighbours and cousins in Scotland and Wales and Ireland who've been alongside us, have finally had the foot on their head, not from foreign dictators, but from our own dictators. It's our own treacherous class that have been running the two main parties that have reduced the once proud, independent and free nation to one that is subject to all sorts of completely bonkers rules and regulations. Napoleon said we were a nation of shopkeepers. He meant that as a criticism, but actually it was that independence of mind of people running their own business, creating businesses and prosperity in their local communities that was the underpinning for that wealth and prosperity that this country delivered. And so it's those shopkeepers, in the broader sense, that we need to free from the panoply of regulation, red tape and taxation which has been grinding them down. And if we can release the underlying energy of the English and indeed Scottish and Welsh people, we will be able to deliver again something that is the envy of the world, because we have it within ourselves to do it. And when I say English, I'm not talking about the colour of the skin. I'm talking about what's written on people's hearts. Is what they do driven by the underlying ethos, which you will all understand, of being English? And if you come from, shall we say, India, or you come from Hong Kong, but you're living and contributing here, and in fact, when you see how you act, how you behave, and how you relate to the other people in the country, if on that you can see written England, we know that you are belonging with us. You are one of us. So it's not a colour thing. It's a will they keep to our culture and deliver the same values that we treasure and have held true to. And we know that to be true because we've done it with groups who've come from abroad before. The Huguenots who were chased out of France because of the persecution they suffered. The Jews from Central Europe who came here. And people from many other places who have joined us and become part of that great British project of delivering wealth and prosperity and freedom to its own people and more broadly. So I'm not going to stay here. I could say lots of other things, but I'm just going to leave this thought to you. We who are now in the Reform Party are the vanguard of delivering that change, of freeing us from the chains which have tied us all down. And those that are not with us yet, in years to come when we've delivered it, to paraphrase Shakespeare, they still abed will think the less of themselves, that they were not with us when we fought the battle, not so much on Crispin's Day, but every day between now and the general election. So thank you very much.
Right, okay, folks, we're going to have a 20-minute break. Make sure you are back here in dead on 20 minutes. We're going to get this flourished, drawing workers from far and wide, including the rural areas and overseas. They all came here seeking an opportunity for prosperity. Now, our county has been at the forefront of engineering and manufacturing, home of innovation in machinery, transportation, and even chemicals. The establishment of the Liverpool to Manchester Railway in 1930 marked a groundbreaking achievement as we became the world's first intercity railway. This remarkable feat of engineering not only connected our communities, but it also facilitated the movement of goods and people, reshaping our economy and our society. Yet as we celebrate this proud heritage, we must also confront the present problems. We offer a fresh perspective and a commitment to serving people, something that's become increasingly rare in this political climate. While the Conservatives and Labour Party often find themselves mired in traditional politics, engaging in endless debates and political manoeuvring, we at Reform UK focus on the solutions to prioritise the needs of our communities. Reform UK stands for empowering local residents, supporting small businesses and fostering an environment where every individual can thrive. We believe in putting the people of Lancashire first because you deserve so much better than the status quo of the uni-party nonsense. Our message is clear. We are here to serve people, and it's not the other way round. The politicians have got lost. We, the people, know more than they do. They've lost their way completely. Reform UK has successfully launched over 400 branches now across the UK, creating a network of supporters and camaraderie that's truly inspiring. The people I've met on this journey so far, some of the best people I've ever met in my life, and it's made this experience absolutely wonderful for me on a personal level. However, folks, we must acknowledge the challenges that the people of Lancashire face today, with rising living costs, a decline in NHS and inadequate public services, the lack of job opportunities. These are the pressing issues that can no longer be ignored. Additionally, we face the challenge of mass immigration that's been forced upon us. This is altering the very fabric of our communities, and we're just watching it happen. But I stand here today with a hopeful message that change is possible. If we rally around our branches, engage in our communities and fight for our values, we can take back control of our local councils and government. Together, we can strive for a brighter future. It's crucial that we mobilise our efforts to unite our voices and work collaboratively to address the pressing challenges. I invite you all to become an integral part of this movement. Join us today in this critical fight to reshape politics for good. Together we can save Britain, not just for ourselves, but for our families and our communities and our country. Your voices, they matter, and your involvement is vital to our success. It's time to take action. It really is. It's time to stand up for what we believe in. It's time to advocate for a future that we all deserve. I want to express my deepest gratitude for your commitment to the cause and for believing in a better Lancashire. Let us continue this journey together to take a lasting impact on our communities and further and beyond. Together we can build a Lancashire that we can all be proud of, one that honours our rich history while embracing the promise of a brighter future. Thank you, Conference, for your time, for your passion and your dedication at this important mission. Let's take the challenge and create the change that we all wish to see. God bless you all. I can't even believe I'm up here, me. Thank you for being so patient with me. A few people pulled me in the break. I'm looking down at my phone. We're not on the teleprompters, so you just have to excuse me and bear with me. I'm doing my best, folks. All the hairs on the back of my neck are stood up on end, honestly. This is just wonderful. Thank you. God bless you all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great excitement that I'd like to introduce to you all a rising star in the world of journalism and political commentary. Matt Goodwin. Wait a minute. Whoa. He's a prominent political commentator and pollster. He's a fresh voice on GB News. Matt has quickly made a name for himself and he's rise through the ranks in GB News, and he's engaging perspectives on issues that matter the most to the most of us. These are the people we need to voice our voices. With a background of political science and a keen understanding of the dynamics shaping our nation. Matt brings clarity and depth to conversations that we all need to have. His ability to connect with his audiences, with his thought-provoking thoughts, and established himself as a trusted voice in the media landscape. Today, he joins us with his insightful observations of the current political climate, offering a fresh perspective and challenges on controversial issues. So please, join me in giving a warm welcome to the dynamic and thought-provoking Professor Matt Goodwin.
Good afternoon. Happy New Year, everybody. What a week in British politics. For the first time in British political history, Nigel Farage and this movement are #1 in the national opinion polls. It's a big moment. It's a big moment. Backstage, they just told me we now have 180,000 Reform Party members. That's 10,000 recruits in 1 week. Enormous. Really, really big. Why is it all happening? Why is this movement taking off? Well, I can tell you, I've asked Reform Party voters. The top reason, we want to control our borders. Very simple. The number of small boat crossings are up 25% on last year. It's costing the taxpayer at least £5.4 billion every year. 5.4 billion. We just took winter fuel payments off British pensioners to save 1.5 billion, and we're spanking 5.5 billion on a crisis that our leaders refuse to fix. It's outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. You know, there was a conservative economist, Thomas Sowell, who once said, immigration laws are the only laws that are ever talked about in terms of how to help people break them. And that's exactly what this Labour government is doing. It's helping people break our laws. It's not only the fact that if you break our laws by arriving in the country illegally, you get a phone, you get a cash card, you get a hotel room, you get private health care, you get a place in local schools. It's not only that. It's that I wake up this morning and I read the government advisor to the Labour Party is saying, if you arrive in Britain illegally, we should also give you a job. I mean, you might as well put a big sign on the White Cliffs of Dover in neon lights saying if you arrive illegally, we'll let you stay. It's the opposite of what we should be doing. We need to have a deterrent, not an incentive. Crackers. And I'm watching, Labour are actually gaslighting this country because what they're saying to you is, well, we're returning more people than ever before. They've returned about 9,000 people. But what they're doing behind the scenes is they're approving 2/3 of all asylum applications from people already in the country. So they're letting tens of thousands stay while trying to convince you that they're doing more than anybody else to remove illegal migrants. What we need to do is very simple. To everybody who says, well, reform doesn't have a plan or nobody can fix this crisis, I say wrong. It's very clear what we need to do. We need to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. That's number one. That's number one. We need to reform or repeal the Human Rights Act. Number two. And we need an active deterrent that makes it clear if you come here illegally, you're not staying here. That simple. Not difficult. Not difficult. And the second reason people are voting reform is to lower the overall level of legal migration in this country, which is also completely out of control. It's absolutely bonkers. Net migration into this country is now nearly 1 million, and contrary to what Boris Johnson and the Tories said, Kemi Badenoch included, and they've lied to this country as well. I'm furious with the Tories. What they told you is they're going to put in place a high-skill, selective immigration policy, that Britain was going to get the best of the best and this was going to drive our economy. That's what they told you after Brexit. That was the plan. That's what Boris told this country. What we got was mass, uncontrolled, low-wage, low-skill, non-European migration, which is making us poorer, not richer. That's the reality. And that's the reality. Everybody in Westminster knows this, by the way. They're all looking at the same figures that I'm looking at. 86% of all migration into the UK now is coming from outside of Europe, from very impoverished nations where, to be frank, people have radically different cultures, radically different values from people in Britain and Europe. That's the reality of it. I put on X this morning the latest figures. You might have read them in the Telegraph. If you look at the 1.1 million people who came into the UK over the last year, do you know what percentage came in on work visas, who came in to work in our economy? 22%. Okay? 22%. So what the establishment have done is they've basically lied to you by saying we're going to have the best of the best, and they've given us a form of migration which is making us poorer, which is a net cost for the British taxpayer, and which is dividing our society. I don't know about you, I have had enough of this. Enough of it. It's not what people voted for. It's not what people voted for. And if we've been, the last 2 weeks in this country, we've been reminded again about what's wrong with our policy of multiculturalism, mass migration, and an elite class in London that, let's be frank, doesn't really care about the country. And I'm not talking about the grooming gang scandal. I'm talking about the rape gang scandal, because that's exactly what it is. And, you know, there are millions of people in this country and around the world who have been looking at Britain, asking themselves the same question. After thousands, maybe a million, says Sarah Champion, Labour MP, after countless numbers of young white working class girls were raped, abused and harassed by Pakistani Muslim gangs, millions of people are asking themselves the same question, from Elon Musk to Jordan Peterson to Nigel Farage. How the hell did any civilized society allow this to happen? And it's not just that the children were raped and abused and in some cases murdered. It's that the people in power look the other way. That's what makes it extra outrageous, more horrifying, that the establishment looked the other way. And I don't think I've ever felt as outraged as I felt a couple of days ago when I woke up to listen to Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, casually describe the millions of people in this country and around the world who want answers, who want the truth, who want justice, as amplifying the far right. That's what he said. He said everybody who cares about this issue is far right. Having watched the Labour Party for the last 30 years do everything it can to avoid talking about this issue, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And what the Labour Party is desperate to do is to turn this into a story about Jess Phillips. Is to turn this into a story about Elon Musk. The mainstream media too, by the way. Nobody wants to actually engage with the underlying issue, which would mean holding a national inquiry. I want to know the truth. I want to name and shame. I want to know why there are still members of Parliament in the House of Commons today who rejected local inquiries in towns like Oldham. I want to know why there are police officers who are still serving today, who knew what was going on and didn't do anything. I want to know why there are social workers who still have jobs, who didn't do anything about this issue. And to be frank, I'm sick and tired of listening to mainstream legacy journalists in this country complain about Elon Musk, when the blunt reality is, if you'd been doing your job, if you'd been pursuing truth, if you'd been treating these girls with as much interest and respect as you treat people like George Floyd, we wouldn't need Elon Musk to actually deal with this issue. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. Because we know the names George Floyd and Stephen Lawrence, but we don't know the names Lucy Lowe. We don't know the name Charlene Downs. We don't know the names Victoria Agoglia. They were murdered by Pakistani Muslim rape gangs, and nobody in Westminster seems to give a toss. I don't just want a national inquiry. I want, as the Reform Party said in its manifesto in July, if you're a dual national in this country and you rape our kids, I want you thrown out of our country. It's not difficult. And Keir Starmer and Jess Phillips and Yvette Cooper, they'll tell you, so will legacy media, that everything that I'm saying is part of a fringe minority. But I've seen the polling. YouGov 2 days ago. I put it on X. 76% of people in this country want a national inquiry into the rape gang scandal, and 77% say what I just said. Let's deport these guys out of the country. 77%, more than 3/4, Sir Keir Starmer, if you're watching, if you're listening, we're not the fringe minority, you're the fringe minority. It's about time a movement starts speaking up for the forgotten sensible majority in this country, and that is this movement. That's the reality. Now, they'll call everybody to the right of Chairman Mao far right. That's what the Labour Party do. That's what they do all day, every day. But if the Labour Party are watching, they're listening, you're the party that's clamping down on free speech. That's what they're doing. The first thing Keir Starmer's government did, removed a law protecting and promoting free speech in universities. Labour didn't want that. They got rid of it. They're now promoting a definition of Islamophobia to shut down on debate about Islam and cultural practices within Muslim communities, which, by the way, includes a specific reference to the rape gangs as an example of Islamophobia. They've been jamming woke ideology down our throats for 15 years, and I'm supposed to believe that the guy who says that 99.9% of women don't have a penis, he's mainstream and I'm a radical. Bananas. And the bit that gets me more than anything is watching Labour MPs complain about foreign interference in British elections and British politics by Elon Musk, from the party that was sending activists to America to campaign for Kamala Harris. Gets better. From the party that was actively plotting with the Democrats in the US, under Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's chief of staff, a company he founded called the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, were going to America to get this, and I quote directly, kill Elon Musk's Twitter. And you wonder why Elon Musk might be a little bit irritated. As I said to Barry Gardner on GB News the other night, or as I like to call him, Beijing Barry, on account of the fact that apparently some money went his way from China, I couldn't possibly comment. I said people are looking at this and all they see is rank hypocrisy. Because look, if you didn't complain about Barack Obama coming over to this country in 2016 and telling everybody to remain in the European Union, and now you're complaining about Elon Musk, you're a hypocrite. And sorry, while I'm here, if you're complaining about foreign billionaires and you're nodding approvingly as Keir Starmer has meetings with Larry Fink and Bill Gates, you're a hypocrite. So look, there is a plan to turn this country around, and there is a plan to get what everybody in this room wants, and I include myself in that. I want my country back. I want my country back. And there is a plan here. But complaining about the state of the country isn't enough. This is actually a movement that has a serious plan from legal migration, the economy, the state, woke ideology. It was ahead of the curve at the election on all of these issues. It's number one in the polls. So what I'm saying is, don't be pessimistic about the country. Don't leave today thinking everything's terrible. Think you're part of a movement that's number one in the polls. Your job is to leave today and tell everybody in your world, friends, family, relatives, enemies, haters, Facebook friends, to come join the People's Army. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, folks, it's with great enthusiasm that I introduce to you today a remarkable leader that embodies the true spirit of the people, a man who is not just a politician, but a true voice for every person here today. Please join me in welcoming Lee Anderson, elected Member of Parliament for Ashton. Wait a minute. Whoa. For Ashton, Lee is a... I'm trying. All right, Lee. A man who is not just a politician, a true voice of the people. Please join me in welcoming this amazing man, Lee Anderson. Lee is a brilliant, down-to-earth individual who resonates deeply with all of us. His unwavering commitment to his constituents. Hang on a sec. With his heartfelt rallying call of, I want my country back. Lee has captured the sentiment of many of us. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give us a rapturous round of applause for the main man, Lee Anderson.
Thanks to Mark Butcher, what a load of rubbish that way, weren't it? It went down. Oh, Christ. I've got a taxi booked, you know. Go on, clear off. Listen. Welcome, conference, and a Happy New Year to everybody in this room today. And it is indeed a pleasure to stand here before the People's Army. And I know you've given up your Saturday afternoon to come in. Many of you have travelled miles. Some of you are staying over tonight in this hotel, so catch me later for a drink and a bit of food if you want to. But thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming here today. Thank you. So we have got a fantastic new year to look forward to, and I have a New Year's resolution. I want to be on the honours list this year. What are you laughing at? Get out. Let's face it, all I've got to do is go back to Ashfield, the capital of common sense, which is where I was born and where I represent, and all I've got to do is increase crime. Yep. I've got to make sure our streets are unsafe. I've got to increase the amount of homelessness. I've got to steal money from motorists and call everybody a racist. Oh, by the way, a massive congratulations to Sadiq Khan, who just a few weeks ago received a knighthood. It's not linked. I'll have none of that language. I'll tell you that there. Look, as you know, the mayor and I are very close friends. In fact, Sadiq Khan is living proof that anything in politics is possible. It's true. But let's not be too harsh on the useless mayor of London, because it's because of him I'm probably here tonight in front of this fantastic People's Army. So thank you, Sir Sadiq. So February time last year, I made a few comments about the useless mayor of London, which got me into trouble with the Conservative Party. As many of you will know, they took the whip away from me, and I was told by the people at the top that I got to apologise to Sadiq Khan, and I said, there's no way I am apologising to that man. He has ruined our capital city. It should be him that's apologising to the people of London. Yeah. Now, I beg your pardon, darling? Top man. Thank you, darling. I'll see you later. as soon as the Tory party, the leadership, took the whip off me and took the side of Mayor Khan against me, I knew there was no way back for me. And I knew that Reform UK was my destiny, so I became Reform UK's first ever Member of Parliament, and you can clap for that. And I tell you what, conference, I could not be happier, so thank you for having me. You know what, I never envisaged a career in politics. I never thought to be an MP. It was never something I actually thought about. But just in a few short years, I went from being an MP to the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party to the first ever MP Reform UK. And for the first time in my brief career in politics, I feel truly at home with Reform UK. I feel that this party, actually, as this amazing party, has captured the mood of millions of people, decent patriots up and down the country, people like you. You are. We are not far-right protesters, are we? We're just decent, hard-working British patriots who love our country and want to leave our country in a better state than when we arrived. That's it. There is conference. There is huge pressure on us 5 MPs. Millions of people up and down the country are looking to us, that they are depending on us to get our country back. Who wants the country back? Yeah. I want my country back. I love my country, and so does Reform UK, which is why we will never apologise for our history, our heritage and our culture. Never. Never do that. And my message is clear. If you do not embrace our way of life, our history, our heritage, our culture, and respect our laws, then clear off. Go away. Parliament keeps trying to give our country away, and we must fight back. This useless, this pathetic Labour government wants to take more money from every single person in this room and give it to other countries or to people that arrive here illegally. It's wrong. Net zero. What a load of rubbish that is. Net zero will impact everyone, make us all poorer, and affect the poorest in the society the most. It's true. Our businesses have paid the highest electricity costs in the world. It's costing jobs, and businesses are closing down. It's madness. Meanwhile, China is leading the world in renewables and still opening coal-fired power stations. We're closing our coal-fired blast furnaces so we can no longer make virgin steel. It is utter madness. Yet this useless government, led by Mad Miliband, the lunatic, the net zero lunatic, he is quite happy for us to import steel goods made by fossil fuels from all around the world. The hypocrisy is absolutely staggering, and it will bankrupt our country unless we stop this madness. Just think about this. Drax Power Station in North Yorkshire, it used to produce electricity from coal mined at a nearby coal mine. But we decided to close the coal mine, and in our quest for this net zero madness, we now import trees from North America in the form of wooden pellets to burn at this power station, and we class this as renewable energy. More madness. Bear in mind, these wooden pellets actually are transported over the Atlantic Ocean in diesel-guzzling cargo ships, transported through the UK by diesel trains. We are literally chopping down forests to cut carbon emissions. Yet at the same time, we are telling our children we must plant more trees. You could not make this nonsense up. And to cap it all, it's costing us £2 million a day in subsidies while we've got pensioners freezing to death because they've had their winter fuel payment stopped. Shame on Labour. Shame on Labour. It gets worse, guys. Mad Miliband thinks it's a good idea to spend £8 billion on GB Energy. He also thinks it's a good idea to spend £11.6 billion on foreign climate aid. We at Reform UK say no to this nonsense. It must end. It's our money, and this money needs to be spent in our country on British people. Over 150,000 illegal migrants have entered our country over the past few years, and most of them are young men. They are not fleeing a war. They're not fleeing persecution. There is no war in France. And even if they were fleeing a war, what kind of a man leaves women and children behind in their own country? I do not want these illegal migrants in our country. Only Reform UK will end this madness. Take my word for it. But this Labour government are doing the impossible. They're making things worse. You know, when Keir Starmer, just a few weeks back, he said, a few months back actually, he was talking about releasing the sausages. I mean, I thought it was a slip of the tongue, but he's actually done that. But what he's done is he's released some silly sausages, and he's put them in his cabinet. Look who we've got running the country. Free Gear Keir. Rachel from Accounts. You know that one, don't you? We've got that famous no-brainer, Angela Rayner. Mad Miliband, the net zero fanatic. And let's not forget our very own mastermind, David Lammy. Yeah. It's not meant to be funny, this, isn't it, you know? He's a proper charmer, isn't he? Like, listen, I hope nobody's filming this. But keep this one to yourselves. We've got over 6,000 villages in the United Kingdom. And if you took the village idiot from every village, right, and put them 6,000 village idiots into Tottenham, David Lammy would still be the village idiot. Yeah? This is a proper political speech, isn't it, this? So you know what? You know, here at Reform UK we've got Rupert Lowe. We have Richard Tice. We have Nigel Farage. These are successful businessmen and successful politicians. These are the men that should be running the country. Yeah. And look who else we've got. We've got our brilliant chairman, Zia Yousef, who was on earlier, a brilliant man. Yeah? We have Nick Candy, our treasurer, another successful businessman. And who do we have as a really good friend of Nigel? We've got President Trump. And who do Labour have for their mouthpieces? Carol Vorderman and David Lammy. The grooming gang scandal, the rape gang scandal, has cast a dark shadow on our country. Thousands of young, vulnerable British white girls raped by Pakistani rape gangs, and the councils and police and politicians have turned a blind eye. And every single one of these people should be put behind bars. Just a few weeks back, Labour's Jess Phillips said no to a public inquiry to the child sex abuse in Oldham. And you have to ask yourself, why? And I think everybody in this room knows the reason why. It's a cover-up. We know it is. It's the same reason the councils, the police, social services and politicians have turned a blind eye. They're scared. Think about it. Vulnerable young girls from broken homes abused by gangs of men, and Labour refused to have a public inquiry. They should hang their heads in shame. I could go on, guys, but have no fear. The Reform UK Rescue Party is here. We're here. We're in the building. Let's cast our minds back to 12 months ago. We had less than 15,000 members. We was polling about 10% in the polls. No money and no MPs. In just 12 months, we've completely turned it around. We've got over 170,000 members now, 5 MPs, money in the bank. Okay. I was trying to keep that a secret for later, but you know what? There's always one, isn't there? You've got to shout it out. Okay, 180. We've got a brilliant new treasurer, a brilliant new chairman. We've got dozens of councillors around the UK. We've got Dame Andrea Jenkins as our mayoral candidate in Lincolnshire. And all that, guys, has been made possible because of you, the People's Army. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. But as our movement grows, so does the opposition. The mainstream media hate us. But don't worry, we've got social media. And there is one social media, one media platform that does give us a fair hearing, and that's GB News. You will know, conference, that last year at the Birmingham conference, I ripped up my TV licence reminder on stage. Well, the bully boys have been back to the door. They've been told to clear off. I haven't got a copy of the letter to rip up, but I would do if I had it here. But I'm telling you now, I am not paying one single penny to pay for the pension of perverts like Hugh Edwards. Rip it up. Conference. We have a mountain to climb, but we have all the momentum. We've got local elections this year, Scottish and Welsh elections next year, and we must take the fight to every single ballot box in the country. But we, the People's Army, can do this. We must stick together. So, guys, a couple of requests. Help us sign up new members. Help us raise money. Help us deliver leaflets. Help us on our path to victory. And then one day you can tell your children and your grandchildren that you were part of a movement that took our country back. Thank you very much, conference.
Fellow reformers, members, delegates, this afternoon as we gather here in the historical city of Chester in the North West Conference of Reform UK, we're going to hear from a real trailblazer, a steadfast deputy leader of the party who's shown unwavering dedication and resilience to face all the challenges in front of him. Richard has become a remarkable individual and he's kept all of the party priorities alive. Without him, sometimes it felt like there was nobody willing to step up, inspiring countless supporters along the way with a sharp mind for policy and a head for people, a heart for people, where he connects with all of us. Richard embodies the values of determination and integrity. His commitment to assuring all of us that our voices will be heard and addressed has made him a vital force in the movement. Today, this sounds like a party political achievement when we bring Richard Tice to the stage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Richard Tice.
Hello, Hello, what an afternoon, what energy, what a crowd. Absolutely fantastic to see everybody. People have been saying some very nice things about me. I wonder if they got the right chap. It's lovely to be here in Chester for many reasons. First and most important of all, your good selves. Second, I feel close to my beloved Liverpool. And third, because when I was looking at the history of this great town, this extraordinary place, Chester, I was delighted to read that it was Chester, of course, that was the home of manufacturing lead shot for muskets in the Napoleonic Wars against our good friends, the French. But what a week, folks. I mean, here we are. It's not even the middle of January, and it's all gone completely pear-shaped for the Labour Party. The tragedy is, that means it's going pear-shaped for all of us. You couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, which crisis do we want? We've heard about the horrors, and we're going to hear more about the horrors of the child rape gangs. We've got a financial crisis in the bond markets in the City of London. I'll come to that later. And we've got an energy crisis across the UK. Unbelievable. And all of these things on Labour's watch. A year ago, I invented a new word. I was sort of trying to have a bit of a laugh. Starmageddon I came up with. I thought I was overdoing it. I was overcooking it. The problem is I wasn't. I was undercooking it. I mean, it's turned into a complete nightmare. We've got new words. We've got Reeves-ageddon. Do you remember that film? A Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, the truth is, folks, we've got a nightmare on Socialist Street. That's really what we've got. And we've got two people who are involved in ruining our country. We've got a lady, and our good mate Lee. He said it right, didn't he? When he said, I think he was quite generous, actually. He said, Rachel from accounts. I think we might have a picture of our Rachel. It's like the image. It's like, I mean, we've got a nightmare on Rachel Street. She is with her scythe. She's cutting our jobs. She's cutting our investments. She's destroying our economy. With her blunder budget, she's in the process of crashing our economy. Confidence is down. Investment is down. Jobs are down. It's unbelievable what this woman is doing. Which is why I actually think she is truly the most dangerous woman to the British economy today. It's unbelievable. And where is she? When she was called for an urgent question on, where are we, Saturday? On Thursday, well, she wasn't there. She was on her way to China. What the hell is she going over there for? I better keep it clean, folks. I mean, honestly, you know, I did say to her deputy, I said, you do realise the last 2 months' economic figures, that actually they're negative. September and October, the growth figures are actually negative and getting worse. He had no idea. He's still banging on thinking everything's fine. Completely clueless, these people. They are a serious danger to our wealth. Now, there's our Rachel. But if you think she's bad, I mean, Lee just sort of touched on the next gentleman. Crikey. Oh. I mean, I actually had to leave the chamber when he was speaking once because my blood pressure was about to boil over. I mean, this man, Redhead, Mad Miliband, we call him, he is completely obsessed, absolutely obsessed in making us poorer. Here we are. It's mid-January. Funny, folks, it's normally quite cold in January. You know, it happens. Now, you thought you were coming to a political conference, but I need a bit of audience participation. I want to check you're on your toes. So we're actually going to transition to a language lesson. Now, hands up, folks. Who speaks German? Hands up. Crikey, we're not a nation of linguists, are we? Sprechen Sie Deutsch? The answer is neiner. But I'm going to teach you one word. And this word is very important. I want you to learn how to say it and tell all your mates down the pub. I'll give you a clue. Dunkelflaut. Now, we're going to practice. After 3, 2, 1, you're all going to say Dunkelflaut. 3, 2, 1, Dunkelflaut. Now, you might say, what on earth does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means there's no wind, there's no sun, it's low cloud, and it's cold. And guess what that means, folks? It means it's January. It means if you carpet your place with wind turbines and solar panels, and you think that's going to provide your electricity, you're in the doo-doo. You're properly in the doo-doo. What's wrong with a bit of good old-fashioned gas? We've got quite a lot of it in this country. Offshore, onshore. No. Mad Miliband. He doesn't want to use gas. He doesn't care about the old Dunkelflaut making us more. We literally nearly ran out of electricity on Wednesday. The price of electricity went up 5 times the average for the last year. As I speak, we're importing about 12% of all our electricity from our friends, the French, and others. Well, what if they need it? What if they've got a bit of a shortage? We don't look so smart. We look damn stupid when we've got our own energy treasure. And these nutters, absolutely obsessed with the gravest act of financial negligence ever imposed on a nation, net zero. I want to insert a swear word in the middle of it, but I'll get told off. Net zero is the greatest harm to our financial health in this country. And I'll tell you what, if you think, we got a few scars on the back from Brexit. We got called all sorts of names. Oh, but that's nothing compared to what they call us because we call out the nonsense on net zero. The good news is, folks, that after giving you all that bad news, the good news is the worm is turning. I think people are waking up to this absolute insanity. We're one of only 7 countries around the world, I think, that have legislated for this madness. Thanks to the Tories. I mean, if you think Miliband is bad, the Tories started this. I mean, if they weren't content with the damage they've caused to our wealth and to our culture with mass immigration, no, they've damaged our wealth with the lunacy of net zero. But the good news is, there's lots of good news, actually. We have to be optimistic. It's only 4 years to the next general election. And the next bit of good news is we are going to win it. Come on! I know, Nigel knows, Lee knows, Matt knows, and you all know. This is happening. It's quite extraordinary. Now, back in the general election, they all gave me a bit of a hard time for a bunch of stuff. They said our numbers didn't stack up. Really? They said that we couldn't save £5 in 100 in public sector spending and waste. Well, having been elected, I mean, you just look at the numbers. And my favourite of public sector waste. So, look, whether you like bats or you don't like bats, right? I'm not a great bat lover, but some of you will be. And that's great. Seriously, folks, if you're building a nice little railway through the countryside, which I actually don't want to build HS2, is it a good idea to spend £1 million on a shed for the bats? Yes or no? Oh, hang on, you're being stingy. What about spending 10 million quid on a shed for the bats? So if I tell you that the Muppets, the morons, in HS2 have spent £100 million of your money on a bat shed, you'll say I'm crackers, but it's true. 100 million quid. I call it the batshit bat shed. Honestly. And here's the thing. It doesn't even stop the bats or protect the bats. I wrote a little tweet, caused a bit of a laugh, even from my opponents. I said, "Dear bats, we're building a railway through this side of the wood. Would you mind awfully going to the other side of the wood? Because we can't afford 100 million bat shed. But that is what's going on all over the country. Your money, our money, is being wasted." So what I actually conclude, and then this happened. Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, just before Christmas, he wrote to all the public sector departments. He said, "Money's a bit tight, folks. We've got to save £5 in 100. Brackets, Tice was right, close brackets." And then they gave me a hard time for saying that we didn't need to pay voluntary interest on all the money that was printed, all the quantitative easing. I said, "You could save 30 billion quid, we don't need to do it." They were all scratching their head, the journos. What does that all mean? I don't understand. The Financial Times looked at it, and then the Economist looked at it, and then others looked at it, and they said, "Bother, Tice is right again. We don't need to do this stuff." You know you're right when Robert Peston agrees with you. And if that wasn't enough, coming back to my old friend, the net zero, well, I said we could save, if we scrap net zero, we could save 30 billion quid a year. The department, you always know you're on the right lines when they said, "We don't recognise that figure." That basically means you're bloody close. I mean, this money, it's our money that they're wasting, folks. So we can save all this money. Imagine a country with lower bills. Imagine a country with a lower cost of living. And imagine a country with more jobs. Imagine an economy led by people that made you better off. Does that sound a good thing? Would you like a bit of that, folks? We just have to do one thing. Tell your friends, tell everybody. All you have to do to achieve that is scrap net zero. And that's why we must have hope. That's why I believe that over the next few years, we're going to achieve great, great things under the superb leadership of Nigel Farage and all the others that are getting involved. It's incredible. This year we've got some elections this year. By-elections. We've got some council elections. And then next year we've got Welsh elections. They're terrified of how well we're doing. We've got Scottish elections. And we're going to surprise everybody. Because we're going to start winning, we're going to keep winning, and we're going to win, win, win. Do you want to win? Yeah. And then, folks, we can win the big one. And when we win the big one, we know, because we've been round the block a few times, that not only can we save our great country, but we can make Britain grow again. And, ladies and gentlemen, truly, we can make Britain great again. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, conference. I hope that you're having a great time. My name is Simon Evans. I am the chairman for West Lancashire Reform. I'm here to keep it very quick and brief. I'm here with one task. My task is to introduce today an extremely brave young lady who is a survivor of the rape gangs. If we think about that word, thank you. If we think about that word, rape gang, grooming gang, how on earth
has this country got to this state that this is a problem. It should never, ever have happened. I met Elizabeth Harper just over a year ago online. We talked for a while about politics, and then she started to tell me her story of how she was snatched from the streets at 14 years of age. Absolutely disgusting, vile people for which there are not enough life sentences. So let's remember where the blame lies. The blame lies with these vile creatures. And we, Reform, must hold them to account. "14 years, the Tory government had the opportunity to do something. And suddenly, Badenoch is standing up in Parliament, going on about it. She never mentioned it when she was in power, and they did nothing. 14 years, the Labour Party had 14 years to prepare and to plan to do something. And what are they doing? Nothing. No inquiry. It is an utter disgrace and an utter outrage. It's not about me, it's about Elizabeth and about all those people who have suffered. Elizabeth is one of the strongest, bravest, tenacious young women I have ever known, and she will be coming to the stage soon. I would ask you, out of respect, please don't take pictures from the audience. It's a brave and scary thing to do, believe me. She has campaigned fearlessly and tirelessly for the last 10 years. She wrote a book, Snatched. I encourage all of you to buy it, read it. It is obviously not good reading. It is awful to read what is happening to our children. I put together a paper last year about how we, Reform, could tackle grooming gangs. Labour won't listen, Tories won't listen, police didn't listen, local authorities didn't listen. The only people that listened were Nigel Farage and Richard Tice, and they put it into our manifesto. We were the only party that specifically talked about how we're going to tackle this issue during the general election. Only party. Elizabeth came to my election rally and stood up in front of 250 people in Ormskirk and spoke for about 20 minutes to half an hour, and she received, quite rightly, a standing ovation at the end of that. I'm going to invite her to the stage now. I would ask you, let's have a standing ovation and welcome Miss Elizabeth Harper. Thank you very much, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm a survivor of historic child exploitation in Rotherham. I say I'm still a survivor of child exploitation, but I am also still to this day trying to survive the broken system that started from systematic failings from those that were paid to protect. This is a little bit about my story. I was groomed, drugged, trafficked and raped by gangs in Rotherham. My abuse started when I was 14. The one who started and facilitated my abuse was a woman that had so much intelligence surrounding them that I should have never been a victim. This lady was allowed to keep me locked in a property for 10 weeks while Pakistani men abused me. South Yorkshire Police were fully aware of what was happening due to the significant and high-level intelligence that they were in receipt of, stemming from at least 7 years prior. The information that they held consisted of that South Yorkshire Police had shut down a fake rape crisis helpline that she had set up in 1999. This was to lure young girls into exploitation. After South Yorkshire Police shut down that hotline, Rotherham Borough Council decided it would be a good idea to give her a taxi contract to provide taxis to pick young children up from school. The list is endless of the horrendous calculated behaviour that she was allowed to get away with. During my 10 weeks locked in the flat, my parents had contacted the police over 200 times for help, to no avail. All that happened was searches of my parents' property, searching of my parents' garage to look for my body. Anything to blame anyone than those adults that was abusing children. One day, something made the police act. You might think, yes, they came to stop the evil crimes being committed against a child. No, instead they arrested my dad. And this was because he tried to save me. I often think, how horrendous is it that the only adult at that time who was made accountable for my abuse was my dad, the only one that was trying to save me. My abuse carried on for 4.5 years, right under the eye of those that needed to protect me. I can't stand here and go into full details because I probably would still be here telling you all in 10 years' time, but mine is just one story in around 250,000 victims of this country. I'm glad that this has come to light again. This, and finally the world, is watching the extent of what we had to go through. I am on a fight for a national inquiry to be held. We as a country need to see how far this actually goes and who is responsible. Yes, there has been singular inquiries just in 6 towns out of over 50 towns and cities across this country. We need the dots joining together to see this for what it is. It's organised crime. We need proper data on the motives and the drives of the perpetrators involved. We need the data on the ethnicity of these perpetrators, and we need action and change. This is a must, not only for people just like me, but for those children that may be suffering now and in the future. And I'm just about done, but all I want to say is that people like yourselves that are sat here, we need you. We need you to be our voices and to get proper change into this government. And last and all, I want to thank you all for listening, and I just want to personally thank Nigel Farage and his team for today.
That was brave. Very, very brave. You've just heard Elizabeth's story in this room this afternoon. And as a result of her coming up and doing this, with many, many media channels here, many more will get to hear her story. But how many people are there like this whose stories have never been told? How many thousands, tens of thousands of men, and in some cases, as with this one, female accomplices, are still living out there, have never, ever been picked up by the police, who've never faced prosecution for something that I think almost represents the most unique evil I've seen in this country in my lifetime. They're out there. I first started trying to get the truth on this issue back in 2012. And of course, for daring to even talk about it, you can imagine the kind of names that I was called. What has become clear is we thought this was happening in 6 or 8 northern towns. Charlie Peters, who has really reignited this story, Charlie Peters doing, I think, great work for GB News. Has shown us that he has evidence that these barbarities have taken place in at least 50 towns. But I'm beginning to hear stories now from Scotland, to hear stories from all over the country, including southern England as well. I don't think any of us have any idea of how widespread this is. I think it is commonly known that these things are still going on. And unless we get to the bottom of what has happened here, to understand the full extent and scale of what has happened here, to understand the motives behind those who perpetrated these crimes, which frankly, I believe, are more than likely to be deeply racist in nature. I really do. Unless we confront this head on, we are never going to have a path for stopping it in the future. And yet, all through this, social services ignored what they were told, didn't act on even what the victims themselves said. They frankly weren't believed. The police in many of these towns have acted abominably. I saw today a tweet that was put out from West Yorkshire Police in Bradford in 2017 to say they'd written letters to warn people against crimes of a sexual nature. Letters! They should have been interviewing, arresting, charging, and putting people in prison, and they weren't doing the job. And government wasn't in the least bit interested. It's all well and good for Kemi Badenoch now to say there should be an inquiry. She's been in Parliament for 8 years. She has never once in Parliament mentioned this issue, including 2 years from 2022 to 2024 when she was the Minister for Women. They weren't interested. And the Labour Party couldn't deal with it. Because for them, mass uncontrolled immigration without integration was their multicultural dream. And they can't admit that in some cases it's turned into a disaster. So we've relied on local inquiries. We've relied on the same councils, the same police forces, and the same social workers who covered the thing up in the first place to launch inquiries. And that is why we need a full national inquiry, not, as the Jay report was, into the broader issues of abuse of children. That was a shotgun approach. This needs to be a rifle shot that deals with grooming gangs, predominantly of Pakistani origin, and then preying on young, in most cases, working-class white girls in this country. We need it. We need it now. We need it done quickly. We need it concluded within 9 months. And we then need action across every arm of government in this country. And it would seem that Keir Starmer is dead set against it, putting spurious arguments to Parliament, such as it would take 7 years to conduct an inquiry. That we had an inquiry already. Well, we did, but it was 459 pages and only mentioned Rotherham, which we were just discussing, once. I'm pleased that Annie Burnham has broken ranks, whatever his motives. I think the pressure on the Prime Minister is becoming immense, and I have said, and I mean, if by the end of this month the Prime Minister has not called a full national inquiry, then we at Reform UK will raise the money, appoint the people and do it ourselves. We'll do it. Thank you. We've had enough of living in two-tier Britain. Had enough of two-tier policing. Had enough of two-tier justice. Had enough of us all being divided up as to whether we're black, Asian, white, as to what gender we might be, what our sexual preferences are. I mean, I don't want to know. We believe that to live in a country that works, and by the way, this is what we believe in, family, community and country. Aren't they the most important things to all of us, to everybody in the country? No, we're absolutely determined that everybody in this country should be treated equally and judged not on differences between us, but judged on their behaviour. And I tell you what, I think those days of saying, oh, we can't say this, and we can't say that, and oh, we mustn't say things that offend people. I'm quite good at that. And of course, I don't mind in the least if people say things about me. It's called free speech. It's called living in liberty. It's called living in a democracy. And it's what our grandparents and great-grandparents fought 2 wars so that we could have. So we know what we stand for, we know the values we believe in, and we will stand up and fight and defend them. And perhaps one of the advantages is that we're not classic career politicians. Too much of the front benches, and indeed much of the back benches of the 2 parties that have dominated politics in our country since 1918, their ambition from university through research office is to become an MP or to become a minister. Actually, those of us that make up Reform have got some real life experience. There's not a single person on that Labour front bench who's ever worked in private business. Not a single one. So is it any wonder they're making such a haulix of it? Including our Chancellor of the Exchequer, very senior economist from the Bank of England. And well done, Lee. Lee stood up in Prime Minister's questions and called her Rachel from accounts, and that's what she'll be known as forever. And so the economy's in a mess. We're going down the drain. Long-term rates are up. Sterling's falling. And for a government that says it's committed to growth, but if you don't understand that the driver of growth is private enterprise, that the driver of growth are men and women setting up their own businesses, working hard, taking risks, and yes, if they succeed, making money. And yet all we do is we tell people at school, you can do a 4-day week. You can work from home. Oh, we're so much more productive working from home, aren't we? Oh, yes. I should cocoa. I mean, there's no one left in Whitehall anymore. They're all working from home. We need a complete economic change of culture in this country. We've got to tell young people that actually, no one succeeds in life in any walk of life unless they do one thing: dedicate themselves and work damned hard. That is how you get results in life. And let's stop demonizing. Stop demonizing people who succeed and make money and do well. Let's do what the Americans do. Let's cherish those people, because without them paying their taxes, we won't have a national health service. We won't have care for the elderly. We need to make money as a country. But Rachel Reeves, of course, is currently in China. Or should I say, China. More of that later. And I guess going to China and begging the Chinese to buy British government bonds is just one step away from going to the IMF. We believe in encouraging business. We believe the administrative state overburdens everybody. We believe and we know that the cheap importation of foreign labour has, over the last decade and more, driven down the wages of working British people. We want a country in which our brightest and best want to stay, because right now they're leaving. They're going off all over the world: Dubai, Australia, America. We need a change of culture, and I think we, with our business brains, with our experience of life, I tell you what, we could run the country a damn sight better than the Labour Party or the Conservative Party are doing or have done. And some of the political dogma. I mean, can you believe we're even having a debate today? Isn't it great? We didn't have a blackout on Wednesday. How in the 21st century are we even having that conversation? But of course, we paid up to 50 times the market price for electricity for those last-minute gas-fired stations, many of which will be out of commission by 2030. This is the lunacy pursued by the Conservatives and now followed by Labour, and God knows Miliband won't stop until every square yard of land is solar and our seas are all full of wind. Well, as we learn, I'm sure Richard talked about Duncanflout. You didn't disappoint me, thank goodness for that. We've got another 7 or 8 days of this coming. And we're still importing electricity from Europe. Well, one day they'll need it more than we do. These are the idiots that are leading our country, that have given us expensive electricity, that have given our businesses the most expensive energy in the world, and we're being deindustrialized because of it. We need plain, good, common sense in government, not people following ideology that is failing and will fail and is leading us to economic and social disaster. And I believe reform can do that. We've got the people and we're good enough. Now, it's been this time last year, I was fresh back from the Australian jungle. Thinner and fitter than I've been since school. 3 weeks without drinking, which I'm doing again, by the way. I'm on dry January. You don't believe me, do you? The papers have said my leadership could be under threat. Maybe this is what does it. I don't know. But I really didn't this time last year think that I'd throw myself back into politics, because I'd done it for such a long time. And I'd done it with one really big goal, which was to take on the establishment over their obsession with us becoming ever more deeply enmeshed in the political project of European Union. And I fought and fought and fought and stood in election after election after election, because I thought we should be an independent, self-governing, free nation. And in the end, we did it. In the end, we voted for it. Thank goodness. But I just couldn't. In the end, I just couldn't stand aside. I could not stand aside and watch Brexit be totally botched, watch promises of bringing net migration down to tens of thousands a year, repeated in manifesto after manifesto after manifesto, to end up with net 1 million coming. And to be told, don't worry, they're all coming to work, they're all paying their taxes, and now we learned the last 3 million that came from outside the European Union, only 16% are working. And we're getting poorer as a result of it. I couldn't just stand aside and watch these things happening. So I thought I'd throw my hat back into the ring, which I did on June the 3rd. And that first promise was kept. I said we establish a beachhead in Parliament and get millions of votes, and we did it. And I think the 5 of us are punching way above our weight. I really do. I really do. And that was just the start. But we had to professionalise the party and democratise the party. We've got a new party constitution. The share ownership structure of the party, which I own most of, because I wanted to protect us from infiltration, will be handed over to you, and that's all with the Electoral Commission as I speak. We're building branches all over the country. We're taking on candidates all over the country. We're making sure they're vetted. And, by the way, I promise you, we have no room for those motivated by hate. We want decent, good people who want to put Britain first, who want to put the British people first, but do so out of love for their country, their culture, for those people that live here, not out of hatred for anybody else based on religion or whatever else that may be. They're important values. But to take on the big battalions, we've got to go through a series of steps. And the first here in the northwest, and you're lucky, because last night I was in the southeast, Kent, Surrey, Sussex, where all the May the 1st elections have been cancelled. The Conservative administrations in those counties know that reform are coming for them. But they couldn't cancel all the elections, and the county elections are going ahead in Lancashire. And we've been winning. We've been winning some by-elections in Lancashire. I think our prospects are incredibly good. The year after, just over the border, we'll have the elections in Wales, where already we're in second place in the opinion polls and could cause a massive shock. So I want all of you that are here today, if you haven't yet committed to helping, and we can all help, in whatever way that is, please, after this meeting, go out to the lobby. There are man tables there, wherever you're from, you know, Lancashire, Merseyside, Cheshire. Please go and sign up. Please help us. And who knows, there could be a by-election in Runcorn that comes up at some point this year as well. So please engage. And the really exciting thing is, the country is warming to our message. We're told that no one attends public meetings anymore. Well, this one was sold out many times over. And as I speak to you, there are people, huge numbers of people, watching us on live stream, and I bet you were as moved by what Elizabeth had to say as we were. There were many tears in this room, and we do care about these things, and we do care about our country. We do care about our people, and I urge you, if you haven't yet, please join us. And people have been joining us. Now, you've seen the live ticker, haven't you? I can't stop looking at it. I mean, maybe I'm getting old if I'm thinking about the ticker at 3 o'clock in the morning and other things, I don't know. But it's quite exciting. Now, who here watched the darts last week? Luke Littler, wasn't that amazing? And what is the top score in darts? And how many members have we got? 180 members! Got it. All right, great stuff. There we are. Just before we came on air, live on air, I threw those 3 darts myself. And if you believe that, you'll believe anything. I didn't. To have gone from where we were a year ago, we're about 12, 13, 14,000 members, to 180,000 members, says something. And you're all members in this room. And as we move into spring, we will open up our events to the public as well, and there'll be thousands coming to each one of these rallies. But the message is simple. If you agree with us, if you agree with our agenda and what you're trying to do, then please join the People's Army. Help the People's Army. If ever there was a moment, a once-in-a-100-year moment, when British politics was about to fundamentally change, where British politics was about to actually represent what the people of this country really think and feel, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen now. It's going to happen in the course of the next few years. I believe we can do this. I also believe the price of not doing this, frankly, doesn't bear thinking about. We have been led by cowards. We have been led by career politicians. In many cases, we've been led by idiots. We are attempting a political revolution in Britain. If we do it and succeed, we'll leave to our children and grandchildren something worthy and something they can be proud of. And I can't bear the thought of failure. I bet you can't either. So please, let's go forward and let's begin here in the Northwest, in Lancashire, on the 1st of May this year. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.